And I am very excited about this next panel that we have. All of these panelists are doing really exciting creative things with brand storytelling. And let me just introduce them. We have Maggie Reum, co-founder and CEO of Hot Smart Rich, and co-founder of HSR Ventures. We have Rashad Assir, head of media at Redpoint Ventures. And Kevin Prince, founder of Heads in the Sky, the first ever creative drone show agency. Welcome. So let's jump into it. I feel like, brand storytelling has always been important, but it does seem to be having a moment right now, and we're seeing storytelling show up in people's job titles and job descriptions. And I wondered, if you could speak to this, Maggie, about why you think storytelling is having such a moment right now.
Well, thank you so much for having me to Inc. I'm very excited to be here. I know there's some HSR angels in the crowd, so thank you guys for coming. I was going to echo what you said to start. I think storytelling has always been really important, but of course, we are living more than ever in the attention economy, and getting someone's attention is like the most valuable thing that you can do, whether it's like getting a job that you want or a business that you're starting. And I think people are craving humanity and connection more than they ever have. Sometimes I go online and I see something and I'm like, is this AI? Is this not AI? And I'm initially intrigued when I'm not sure. And as soon as I find out that it's AI, I actually am like, ooh, I actually don't want to listen to that as much as I want to listen to an original thought and an original idea. And I think, I think that it's going to become more and more and more important to become relatable, to being honest, especially as we're thinking about building brands, like that human connection that you have to the highs and the lows. I have a podcast where I sometimes cry on the show, or I have other women that come on and are like, I would never do that. But it's finding what works for you with storytelling and then just leaning into that. But I think with AI, we are going to see more human connection, more storytelling. And when Gap this year brought on Pam Kaufman, and she was the chief entertainment officer, it became very clear that brands and people that will succeed will entertain. They will not read you features and functions. So I think that's hopefully going to be where we're moving in the future.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Do either of you, Kevin, Rashad, do you have anything to add to that, or other factors that you're seeing?
Yeah, as far as like the moment of time we're in, I feel like, can people hear me okay in the back? Yeah, okay. I feel like there's been two big waves of the last 5 years. And the first was like the TikTokification or algorithmic, pivot from social media. You used to follow people that you kind of knew or loosely knew, or your, ex-girlfriend from high school that you don't really care about, but I still see her on my feed. And now it's like, almost entirely interest-based. When TikTok came out and all the other platforms start to come out, people follow things that they're interested in more than the sort of social graph. And so that kind of makes it a level playing field for everyone to come online and tell a story. So you have like this explosion of the amount of content. And then 2 years later, with the ChatGPT moment in history, you have like the cost of producing content basically going to zero. And so you put those two things together, the amount of content is, and the ability for creators, individuals, brands to participate in the conversation has just completely changed. And so now, to Maggie's point, it's like, who can stand out by actually telling a differentiated story? And to me, that's the fun part of all.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I mean, 3 years ago, I started a company based on the phrase, I need a big idea. And I didn't know at the time, but I kind of bet on that, right? And now I'm seeing that more and more brands really want first to market, they want big ideas, and they want to make moments in a local kind of setting. And that's, I think, where brands can be impactful, right? Which is like showing up for consumers, for fans, for viewers, whatever the case is, where they are, and then having that brand moment and telling that story in a relatable way, in a way that they can engage with and want to share it with, is kind of more important than the traditional kind of marketing arc of a campaign. Brands are now showing up in these moments like Coachella and whatnot to really make a splash in that one moment.
Yeah, building on that, I would love to hear about how you all think about how to tell stories with your business and the businesses that you work with. Kevin, to start with you, you just broke a Guinness World Record a couple months ago in Hollywood.
It did. It was the tallest drone show formation ever.
That's
So
amazing.
it was Godzilla, so it made sense.
Yes, if you haven't seen that video, look it up. But you made this incredible drone show for Apple TV, and I would love to hear about how you told that story. I know you talk about storytelling being important to your business.
Yeah, that's a great question. It was amazing, by the way. If you didn't see it, go YouTube it. It's cool. We blew stuff up. It was really amazing. So the assignment that we got from Apple in that moment was we need to make a monster headline or a monster moment, to kind of what I was saying before, which is that brands now are preferring kind of big, earned, first-to-market, buzzy, if you will, like headline-making moments. So that's my favorite kind of assignment, which is we need to make a headline and it has to just be monster. And I'm like, oh, great. Like, you know, I have a drone show company, so I could probably do that. So the idea was, you know, from beginning to end, we really worked with the team to shape what that monster story was, and that was kind of our North Star. So we wanted to break a Guinness World Record. That feels monster to me. We wanted to, you know, blow stuff up. I'm like, that feels cool. That feels pretty big. And we wanted to place the most iconic monsters that were in the series. The series is Monarch, if you don't know it. It's Godzilla, it's King Kong, and they have a new monster that they were premiering. So the execution and the storytelling was kind of pretty simple, but the storytelling was simple, but the execution is really what pushed it over the edge and got it to, you know, break a record and all that.
That's great. Rashad, would you like to talk about how you do storytelling? One of the things that people may not know is that you actually have a comedian on staff at your VC firm, which is pretty rare. So I would love to hear about that and how you bring comedy into it.
Yeah, so are there a good amount of founders, I assume Founders House is a good amount of founders and VCs in the audience just by, okay. So I was hired to Redpoint about 4 years ago to basically, I would say the story that we're telling is how can we communicate that we understand what it's like to be a founder, because if you talk to founders about what's important in choosing an investor, you know, by far outside of maybe like the brand and the halo that you get from that venture, it's the partner that's going to join your board. And so we want to put on display that we understand what the, you know, in a truly like empathetic way. We chose humor, and the medium is maybe a little bit more conventional than the drone shows, but like through sketch comedy, we can really almost like reenact some of the experiences that a founder might have with a venture firm, and especially the ones that people don't talk about a lot. So like, I'll give just one example. When the market turned in 2022, there was this big moment where the public markets for tech companies really went down, and VCs went from giving the advice of grow at all costs to you know, efficiency matters. And it was like the same venture firms that 6 months ago were telling you like, you know, hire 500 people and grow your marketing team, and then 6 months later they're like, we don't really need a marketing. So like, I think we put that on display. Yes, it was a little controversial. Yes, some founders maybe, but I think that's kind of how we've chosen to tell this story, is through the medium of sketch comedy. And yeah, we do hire professionals to help us because you need like creative people to do truly creative things.
Great. And Maggie, how about you? I mean, you tell your own story through Hot, Smart, Rich, but you also work with a lot of startups as both a marketer and an angel investor. I would love to hear from you about how you think people should build stories, as well as why you think founders should be the best storytellers.
Amazing question. Few frameworks I work through. The first one is that if you are for everyone, you are for no one. I learned that the hard way. I actually managed an $18 million budget in a previous role and burnt $18 million in a previous role. That company did not have an exit. And we tried to be for everyone. And so when I was starting Hot, Smart, Rich, I was like, who is the common enemy? Who am I speaking to? And how do they want to be spoken to? And it's for the girls that love finance and business and entrepreneurship as much as they love beauty and fashion and marketing. And I used a very shared language, saying angels and babes. And I think it was really alarming for a lot of people, specifically men, including my father, who actually said to me, you are alienating 50% of your potential audience if you are only speaking to women. And I said, but it's for the girls. And the girls have turned what we started with TikTok videos and a podcast with 3 iPhones into one of the fastest growing female ambition business shows today. We just received an investment from Stephen Bartlett, Diary of a CEO, second biggest show in the world. And every single time I am making content, it is who is the common enemy? Who is my customer? What do they want to hear? And I do not shy away from it, even if it turns 50% of people off. But I am very proud to say to all the men in the room today, 25% of our listeners are men, 22% of our newsletter subscribers are men, and I have never spoken to them, but they love it. They get to see inside of the 85% of women that controls consumer spend, 85% of consumer spend is held by women. And so why would I not speak to them? So when I'm working with a startup, it's very much like, you can't, this is to borrow from Stephen Bartlett, you cannot be for Red Bull if you're also for Ted Matcha. You're either or, you're not for both.
That makes a lot of sense. And building on that, yes, we applaud that. Building on that, I would love to hear from all of you about some of the worst mistakes you're seeing right now with story building. I mean, we have, as you mentioned, Maggie, a lot of AI content out there. Not all of it is that great. So what are some of the mistakes that you're seeing companies make?
Go for it.
I made a pretty controversial video a few months ago that's been through a bunch of PR agencies, and it was, please do not have content creators post 3 frames in a story set for your deliverable. It doesn't work, and the consumer is like actually going to not buy the product if that is what your advice is. I think it's a very interesting position that I've been able to sit in, being a creator and being an investor and an entrepreneur, where I get why brands want to protect things and they have a framework that they think is going to work. But when you don't listen to who is delivering that message and you don't trust them with their audience, like, the angels know the content that is unique. Like, I can see you smiling, and they know when it's authentic. And as soon as a brand comes in and is like, 3 frames and you need to have these features and functions, I'm like, you're just not a good fit for us. And that's okay. But I really think that the 3-frame story set needs to get thrown out of the window. Develop a month-long partnership with a creator, trust them with how they deliver their message, and you will go so much further than just being like, here's the script, here's the brief, do it our way. Why did you hire me?
That's good.
I totally agree with that, and everything you said about the, you should be intentionally alienating one part of your audience to appeal to the other. So just want to echo that. Another thing, just to answer your question, Bobbie, about like what mistake, I think the easiest mistake to fall into right now is because it's so easy to produce content, you'd be like, all right, well, let's just give Claude a really good prompt and we'll come up with our LinkedIn strategy that way. And I don't know if others have had a different experience, but like to this point, I haven't really found anything that Claude or OpenAI or any of the LLMs has produced as particularly novel, original, evokes any sort of emotion. What it is good at doing is like, I don't know, synthesizing, maybe generating a lot of bad ideas so that you're starting with something and then you don't have this like blank canvas where you're just staring at a blank piece of paper. But outside of that, like if it feels easy, you're probably not doing it right. And like it should feel really difficult to sort of come up with those ideas. And I would say also like the more you can lean on creatives outside of your industry to come in, like I'm seeing a popular trend among tech companies now to bring in comedians either like as a creator in residence or just sort of behind the scenes to be like, we need to mix it up a little on social. And it's probably not going to be the, person who's been running product marketing for 20 to 30 years or whatever that's going to come up with those fresh ideas.
So true. And I feel like every LinkedIn post kind of sounds the same right now.
Yeah, I would say that AI has yet to give me a big idea when that I've used, at least, that when I say I need a big idea for blank. They've yet to give me that, so I agree. And I totally agree on being something for someone and not nothing for no one. I think that's probably one of the most important things, especially in this market, that we can kind of abide by. I think that the companies that aren't taking risks, the companies that aren't being authentic and true to their brand and kind of understanding their consumers are the companies that are not going to win this, and the companies that are going to kind of fall behind in the content glut, because you need to, if you're not taking a risk, if an idea doesn't make me scared, I don't do it, because I know that it's not a good idea then, because if it's not risky enough for me and I'm not like, ooh, is this going to work? Like, am I really going to break a Guinness World Record, or am I really going to, It could be smaller. Am I really going to launch a drone inside this room? That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. But that would make me too scared. But it's not worth doing. So I think that you need to be, in order to break through, you need to be on a little bit scared of what you're about to put out, or a little bit excited, or whatever the case is. So.
I'm wondering, how do you measure whether you told a good story? Does anyone have an answer for that?
Yeah, well, I guess in our world, maybe I'd be curious to hear Kevin's, but your audience will tell you pretty quickly. Like there's a pretty short, very contrary to venture, where there's long feedback loops, and sometimes you don't even know for 20 years if the investment worked out. Like I know within like a couple minutes if I'm telling a good story. That applies for podcasting, I think, and Instagram and things like that.
1,000% agree, especially with short form. I think the interesting relationship with my audience, at least, is like it's a two-way relationship. Like I've been in the DMs with these girls, like talking, understanding what they like, what they don't like, what's the nuances. And I think that's the beautiful time we're living in now, is like the gatekeepers don't exist. You can actually talk to consumers. And gonna call out my husband next, but my husband was like, why are you always spending the time reading the comments and being in your DMs? Just get your publicist to like summarize it for you, and you can avoid the haters, and then you can like learn about trends. And for me, I was like, that's just so not the secret sauce, though. The secret sauce is like knowing the women's businesses, like what do they want to see? And I think that's what social media has provided us the access to do. And I forget what book it was exactly, but I think it's James Clear Habits. It didn't take off until like a few years after he actually put it out, right? And I think the same is so true with long form, with a podcast. Like something might not hit the first 24 hours, 48 hours, week even, and then there's the right recipe of the right person seeing it, sharing it. There's the right clip that goes out. And like, I think that's the other thing we have to think about with creativity is it's like objective to who? It's the audience. And it might take 8 times for someone to see something to actually convert from going long form to from short form to going long form. And so I think I love the time we're living with creativity, because there's that immediate reaction, and then there's the trust of being scared and feeling it in your gut, and then doubling down on what you've already invested so much time and so many resources into. And then if you still can't catch it, it's like, okay, on to the next. But I think that's what I love about having both short form and long form, because something that hits for short form right away might take a bit longer with long form, and like, that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I know if something hits or not if Complex covers it or not. So it's almost an immediate kind of thing that we know. But like, if we're engaging the right people and the right audience and they're talking about it, that's kind of my metric of success, because it's not every stunt or activation or marketing campaign is going to get the Complex treatment. But like tonight, I have a show that's happening in. If you see it, then I'll know it hit, by the way. If you guys don't see it, it doesn't hit. But it's happening on the way to Coachella, and it's going to be the first drone show billboard situation, right? So we're going to do when people are stuck in traffic. I think it makes me scared a little bit. But like, if you guys don't see it, then it didn't hit, right? So that's the barometer is almost instant with when you're doing marketing stunts and activations like that.
Wow, that's great. We have time for a couple more questions. I wanted to know, what are some of the key components that you think makes a successful story? And are there any formats in the age of AI that enable more human connection? Anyone jump in?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. What are some of the key components to good storytelling? And are there any ways to build human connection?
I think just like thinking like a fan or a consumer, and at least for me, what would I want to see and what would I share is always a good kind of level set barometer, and then leaning in.
I was gonna say, I just saw Rick Rubin on Lewis Holmes' podcast, and he was like, it's a funny thing about art, like when you make it for yourself, it ends up being better for everyone else. And so I am the consumer, I make it for myself, and it ends up being better for everyone else. But there's a few frameworks I've learned that I actually try to put through every single big piece of content. It's like, is there an enemy, is what I always go to. Is there a hero's journey? So like when we were doing a huge announcement, when we were announcing our fundraise, it was like I wanted to show people, hey, yeah, we just got a 7-figure deal, but like this is how we started. It was on iPhones. It was like literally with my sister editing the podcast, like me greeting guests and just like doing everything ourselves. And people relate to that hero's journey. And then what I'm working on right now is like the sacred flaw. So like, what is the best part of your story? What is actually also going to be your Achilles heel? And so those are the three things I typically look through when I'm producing a larger piece of content. But I think the other thing with short form is like, don't stop experimenting. Like, just because your format worked for you for a year, it does not mean it's going to continue to work. I have a great example of I used to do Hot Smart Rich Girl podcast episodes every single Monday. They would get like 500,000 to 1 million views. And then after a while, they stopped. It was like they were getting 5,000 views and 10,000 views. And I was like, all right, I guess this really isn't working anymore. And so we started doing it in a different type of format. And so you have to constantly be experimenting, even when something was working in the past, it might not work in the future. So like, have fun with it.
Can I ask you too about what you mean about having an enemy?
So like, kind of similar to what you were saying, actually.
You're gonna say I was your enemy.
No. But you know how you like,
Fireworks.
you brought like comedy into VC and we're like making fun of the VCs that kind of were telling you 6 months ago to grow at all costs and now it's all about profitability. When I'm thinking about it, I kind of think of like the woman I'm speaking to, she has a completely different set of obstacles to go through than maybe the male founder and maybe the dad versus the mom. And so like, what is that common enemy in the story? And it changes every single time, but I'm constantly thinking about that because I know if I hit on that, I'm gonna speak directly to my audience.
That's so interesting.
I'll add one thing that has been super top of mind recently because we're working on this new series actually where every time we make a significant investment, which we'll do probably 15 to 20 of a year, we'll go to the founder's office and do almost like a short form docu-series covering and like featuring that company. And you know, a VC producing content about their portfolio is like not a particularly novel idea. So it's all about the execution and how you do it in a differentiated way. The thing that I'm like really pushing me and my creative teams to do is like, how do we show something in this video that would otherwise you could talk about it and any company can say like, we like to hire people that are curious and high slope and, you know, this same sort of like 5 adjectives that every company describes and they're like ideal candidates. But how do we actually show that these are the values of the company? Like, what are the small things that would be impossible to sort of like fabricate? Because I think that's what the audience demands today. Anyone can say, we just raised this much money to redefine, it's like Mad Libs, like with the LinkedIn posts, you know, like fill in your amount of money for reimagining this industry. So like, how are we going to differentiate? It's in our, you know, the bet we're making right now, it's through the humans and the stories because that's really where the uniqueness is. But it's not easy because I have to go on site, spend time with the company, have lunch with the team and the engineers, learn about this funny thing that happened at the offsite 2 years ago, and then they brought back this little piece of memorabilia. Now it's hanging on the wall. Okay, now it's interesting. But like, we just raised XYZ money to build the future of blah, blah, blah. Like, that's going to get lost in the noise.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I. Well, I would say that, you know, the enemy thing is fascinating, and I think that's such a good kind of takeaway for this. Like, I'm like, who is my enemy? Is it fireworks? Like, what is the? I'm like, what? Who?
It's boring.
Yeah, it's boring. I think, is it like, yeah, it's boring. Is the enemy boring? Is it? So I would yes and to that, where that all circles around. You have to be something for someone, and you have to be unique in your own lane and take a risk. And I love the enemy of it all. So.
I think we have time for one more quick fire, which is, do you have any predictions about where storytelling is going next or anything that you kind of got your eye on as growing?
I could talk about maybe like a trend that I think we're going to start to see way more of. And I'll call out like a couple of, very VC of me to talk about a portfolio company, but one of our investments was Ramp, and they did this amazing thing with Brian from The Office where they did a physical installation in Madison Square Park. Yeah, Park. And it was truly amazing. Like, it was like, you know, weeks of content leading up to it, weeks of content led to a Super Bowl commercial. It's just like this whole stunt and production led by a really creative team. And I think you're going to start to see more, you know, traditional either enterprises or tech companies or AI companies bring in like true creative talent. people that have worked on the biggest YouTube channels or stunts, Mr. Beast, ex-Mr. Beast people come and really bring this stuff to life, and that's going to be the way that the new way of like really garnering attention.
Well, thank you so much. Did we want anything else?
I was just going to
Wanna say one more
add,
thing?
I really wanted to mention this because it was huge news a few weeks ago, but when OpenAI acquired TBPN, I think it was a clear sign to the market that like everyone needs to have distribution, and it's going to become more important that like you cannot build a physical product, a service, a technology without having some sort of distribution. And so that was like huge news when it broke. It was like, whoa, you can't ignore it anymore. And so whether you're the expert or you're going to hire the expert, like you have to figure out how you're going to compete in this world, and it is going to have distribution.
Well, thank you all so much for this. Thanks for being
Thanks
here.
for having us.
And enjoy the rest of Founder House.